To get started on the Photoshop Lesson 1 book project, you should have downloaded the Lesson 1 file resources. Once you download it and uncompress the folder, inside of this folder there are two different files. The first one is a Photoshop file, and if you double-click it and open it up in Photoshop, this will give you an idea of what we're going to be creating. This lesson is all about learning the workspace, the panels, the tools, and the common features that you're going to be encountering over the next couple of lessons. Pay close attention to what tool you're going to be using, the workspace and how it's laid out, and also which panel is most often used and how you can change things around with it. Also pay attention to any drop-down menus that may be available. Remember, I'm working on a Macintosh computer. If you're using a Windows computer, your layout's going to look very similar, but there will be a couple of things that are slightly different. I'll try to point those out as necessary. Once you're done looking around at the end product, go ahead and close it out by going up to File and down to Close. You don't have to save anything if prompted. Now the first thing we want to do is to create a new file from scratch. In order to do this, pay close attention to the fact that you have a New File button, or you can go to File and New to create a new document from here. All documents in Photoshop need to know their specific size, their resolution, color modes, and all of this is based on how you intend to use your final product. Since this design is meant to be used for film and video, we've got some pre-made custom and commonly used sizes under the film and video link at the very top. With that selected, you can click on the HD TV 1080p. From here, notice that it automatically types in a size for the height and the width, the resolution, the orientation. All of this is necessary for making something to be used on a high-definition television. You can click on the Create button, and this will give us our blank canvas to work from. Before we do anything else, let's save our document. Go up to File, down to Save As, and then let's save our document to a place that we know where it's going to be. In our case, let's find the Lesson 1 folder that we're working in. From here, let's give it a name of 01 Working, and make sure the format is set to be Photoshop. From here you can click Save, and this will save it to your computer. Now let's place an image inside of this area. If you'll notice in our folder, they've given us this arch JPEG. To bring it into Photoshop, you can go up to File and down to Place Embedded. From here, locate the Lesson 1 folder, and inside that folder you can find that arch JPEG. When we say Place, this will place it in the middle of our document. Notice that you have a bounding box going around the edges of it with the little handles that you can click on. Clicking on the right center handle, you can drag it all the way to the edge of your document, and the left center handle will drag it to the edge of that document too. Notice that when you drag on these handles, it automatically proportionally resizes your document. And even though there's some parts that go beyond your document, everything still fits and is cropped inside of your working area. Once you've got it set, click on the little check mark at the very top of your screen to lock in your transformation. Now, if you want to be able to zoom in and view your document closer, there's a couple of places you can do this. First, check out the very bottom left-hand corner of your document. Let's get this out of the way. This 100% represents our zoom level. And if you click on it, you can type in whatever number that you want to be able to get closer or farther away. However, I like to use the zoom tool. The zoom tool is found at the bottom of your toolbox. It looks like a little magnifying glass. If you hover over it, notice that it'll pop out and give you a little tool tip. The keyboard shortcut for the zoom tool to automatically select it is to simply type the Z on your keyboard, or you can click on it and have it selected. Now with this tool, you can click to zoom in, or you can click and drag and zoom in this way, so this does it dynamically. Or if you hold down the Option key on a Mac or the Alt key on a Windows, this will zoom out. Usually holding the Option or Alt key does the opposite of whatever you want your tool to be able to do. So play around and zoom in and out until you get a setting that you like. If you pay attention to the top of your screen, this is your control panel. Whenever you have a tool selected, you can customize the tool, usually up here at the very top. For example, when I click and drag with my zoom tool, this is known as scrubby zooming. If I turn off that feature, now when I click and drag, this gives me a rectangular marquee that allows me to zoom in on one particular area. You can see I can get very close. Again, hold down your Option key and zoom out until you can see the whole thing. Finally, if you want to zoom all the way back out and get everything to fit to your screen, you can click on the buttons that are up here at the very top. Choosing Fit to Screen will recenter everything back to where we first started. Now, one of the most powerful panels that you want to have active is going to be your Layers panel. The Layers panel is usually located in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, and this allows you to organize all of the images and the stacking order of those images. In order to create a new layer, let's have the Arch layer selected by clicking on it, and then click on the little plus sign at the bottom of the Layers panel. This will create a Layer 1, which is a blank, transparent, by default layer, and then we can double-click the name of it, and let's call it Rectangles. Inside of this layer, we want to create a set of colorful rectangles that will decorate our design. Before we can do this, let's make sure our units of measure are consistent with how we want to measure out the size. In order to do this, go up to your Photoshop preferences. If you're on a Mac computer, you can find your Photoshop preferences or settings under the Photoshop drop-down menu. If you're on a Windows computer, your preferences and settings are found under the Edit menu down towards the very bottom. Since I'm on a Mac, let's go to Photoshop, Settings, and let's open the Units and Rulers. Right now, my units and rulers are set to pixels, which is exactly what I want it to be. Ensure that yours are set to pixels as well too, since we're working on a document that's meant for screens and it's made up of pixels. From here, we'll say OK. To select the area that we want to fill in with a color, let's use a selection tool known as the rectangular marquee. This looks like a rectangle that's made of dotted lines. With it selected, carefully click on the border just outside of your document and drag down. And as long as you're holding down your mouse, you can see how it starts to create a selection. Notice that there is a width and a height that follows along your cursor, and there's a number that updates the W and the H as you drag. I'm going to click and drag all the way down to the bottom until my width says 97 or about 97 pixels and the height is 180 pixels. If yours is off by a little bit like mine is, that's okay. When you let go, you can see how it automatically updates and you have a selected area. Now, do ensure that the rectangles layer is selected, and you'll notice you have your contextual taskbar that pops up at the very bottom of your selection. From here, click on the little paint bucket to open the Fill content, and let's fill it in with a specific color. Now, the color picker allows you to choose colors in a variety of ways. First off, notice that you've got your hue, saturation, and brightness box in the middle, and you can change whatever color you want it to be on the little slider rainbow. You can dial in a specific value, and that's more than just the HSB. There's RGB and even CMYK, or you can type in a hexadecimal number down here. Let's select the hexadecimal hash down here and type in FF7F00. And that'll give us this exact version of orange that we want. When we say OK, this will bring us back to our fill options, and notice that color is selected. We're filling it in at 100% and say OK to this to fill in that color now. Great. Notice that the area is still selected. So to deselect the area, let's go up to the Select drop-down menu and choose Deselect. Command or Control D is a good keyboard shortcut to remember. Let's do a blue one over on this side. To make another selection, click outside the area and drag down. And we want to go all the way down and to the left this time until it says 660 pixels. Again, if yours is off by just a little bit, that's okay. Right about there. Now that we've got the entire area, we can fill it in another way by going to Edit and choose Fill. This time it brings up the fill options, which is exactly the same as what we did before. So there's multiple ways of doing the same thing. This time choose the contents to be color. This brings up our color picker. And let's type in a hex value of 0053B2 and say OK to that. And then say OK to this, and that'll shade it in that particular version of blue. Once again, since we want to get rid of our selection, go up to the Select, Deselect, and that will deselect that area. So check out our Layers panel. We've got these two different colorful rectangles on top of our arch layer, and you can see how they're covering it up. What we want to do is to be able to blend these in. In order to affect the blending mode of a layer, make sure it's selected, and blending modes can be found right here. By default, they're set to normal. If you click on the name and scrub over some of the different versions, you can see how this will allow it to blend in with whatever pixels are below the currently selected layer. There's lots of different ones to play around with, but for this one, let's choose the color blend mode. Notice now with color selected for the rectangles, it colorizes that area below it. Now let's add some text on top of this area. To add text, we need to have a type tool. The horizontal type tool is found towards the bottom of your tool panel. With it selected, pay close attention to the options you now have at the very top. First off, over on the side, you can choose what font you want to work in. The book recommends working in Arial Fat Face. As I start to type out the font name up here, you can see how they'll appear in your font list down below. If you don't have this font, don't freak out. You can use whatever font that you want. To change the size of your font, you can either choose a predefined size here, or you can type in the number here. In our case, we'll do it as 210 point. Also, if you click on the little double T's, you can scrub the size in there as well. I like to type it in just so that it's perfectly set there. Finally, let's set this to be centered text right inside of that area. One last thing we also want to do is to make sure your font color is going to be white. I should have shown you this. This is your font color. When you click on it, just like the other color pickers, you can choose whatever color you need inside of here. Since mine's already white, I'll say OK to that. Now I'm going to click towards the center of my document. And this is going to give me some default lorem ipsum text that I can start to see what my text will look like. Notice in my Layers panel, I've got a type layer, and by default now it's called Layer 1, but you'll see this change in just a second. Also, when I click inside of here, my Properties panel popped up. The Properties panel gives you full control over, in this case, the character style that we're working with for this font. So everything from the size of it to the leading and all the other little changes that can be made can be found inside of here. If necessary, you can scroll down and see even more ways of changing up your type. In our case, let's make sure all caps is selected under the type options. This way, when we type out history, there we go, history 101, you can see that it's automatically selected and it's automatically all caps. I can see my font has gotten off size, so I'm going to set that back to be 210 down here on my control panel. Now it's nice and large and easily seen. Once you're ready to commit to this, you can either hit the return or the enter key, or you can click the checkbox at the very tip top. Notice in the Layers panel that it also automatically updates the name of that layer to be whatever text you've got selected. Finally, if your text is not perfectly centered inside of your frame, use the double arrow Move tool at the very top of your toolbox. With it selected, you can click on the layer until it's nice and centered inside of this area. You can see how the little guides are automatically going to get it to snap until it's in the crosshairs in the center. Now let's add some more text to it. Once again, make sure your type tool is selected. Let's go up to Select and let's deselect all the layers so that no layer is selected. From here, let's set our font to be Acumin, A-C-U-M-I-N, Pro, Condensed Black Italic. That looks good here. Notice that Condensed Black Italic is the version of this font. The size of my font this time is going to be 165, and the alignment is going to be set to the right. For this one, we're going to click right along this right edge just once, and it will create our lorem ipsum text. Let's retype it as live stream. And again, if everything looks good, you can click on the little checkbox at the very top to lock it in. Now is also a good time to save our document. So right now, let's go to File and down to Save. If it asks you for the Photoshop options to maximize compatibility, say OK to that. Let's continue on in the next video to finish out this project.